Bantu male Albert John Luthuli on the 21st of July 1967 and completed a report on Form Health 1, which was read and handed as Exhibit C, was Jacobus Johannes van Zyl. During cross-examination, the witness was asked whether from injuries he could be able to tell whether the deceased was struck from left or right. His response was, I quote, "There were multiple injuries, and it is impossible to say from which side, but I will say he was struck by some very heavy object to cause his injury." My lady, this is the least we know. From people who ought to have made the court wiser in terms of the injuries as per the narrative of an accident, whether the nature of injuries accords with the said narrative that the deceased was struck by a train. I'm on one's mind whether there was sufficient probing of the evidence of these witnesses about their observation of injuries, nature of the injuries, and the narrative that had been given. A look at the post-mortem report, together with evidence of a pathologist that is still to give evidence before this court. The court will hear of the presence of injuries on the arms and hands of the deceased. However, during the initial inquest proceedings, no questions were led as to understand how the deceased could have sustained those injuries. How could a person who is struck by a train have injuries on the arms and hands? The court will hear the classification of the said injuries as defensive injuries. And then one would then wonder whether Chief Luthuli was defending himself against a train for him to sustain the injuries on the arms and the hands. Charles Baron Petrus Lewis, a detective sergeant in the South African Railway Police from Durban and investigating officer of the case, was called to read as well his affidavit he deposed to on the 3rd of August 1967, which was received and marked Exhibit D. The same happened of Daniel Lezing-Reiling, who confirmed an affidavit that he deposed to on the 2nd of August 1967, which was later on marked Exhibit K. Peter Francois van Wyk was also called during those proceedings, and he confirmed equally an affidavit that he deposed to and was marked Exhibit L. Nsakani Mataba, who was working on the bridge within the vicinity of the alleged scene of an accident, was called to testify, and he inter alia testified that he saw the train when coming from Stenger, entering the bridge, but did not keep watching the train. As the train entered the bridge, it made a noise, but it was not blowing rather. It was traveling very fast. From the record, no evidence was solicited about Chief Luthuli. A number of affidavits were then handed up by the prosecutor. Those, my lady, were marked Exhibit O, that being the affidavit of Peter Francis Papaya. Exhibit B being an affidavit of Andres Petrus Vega. Exhibit Q, an affidavit of Itich Kili. Exhibit R, an affidavit of Nokanya Luthuli. Exhibit S, an affidavit of N.S. Mfeka. Exhibit T, an affidavit of Zepi Gumede. My lady, Stephanus Albertus Latehan, who was the train driver that allegedly hit and caused the death of Chief Luthuli, was called to read an affidavit that he had deposed to on the 24th of July, 1967, to the South African Railway Police in Durban in connection with the death of a Bantu, Albert John Luthuli, which was received and marked Exhibit U. During cross-examination, after the reading of the affidavit, he told court that he first observed the deceased while he was 160 feet away from him, walking towards the train. He conceded that he did not slow down and was knocked down on the side of the engine. From the evidence that is referred to supra, can it be said that the Inquest court conducted an investigation into the death of Chief Luthuli in a manner that was so thorough that the public and interested parties were satisfied that there has been a full and fair investigation into the circumstances of the death? It is submitted a thorough investigation was not conducted at the court of court. Additional evidence will be tendered in these proceedings which may persuade the court to overturn the findings of the court of court. The prosecution will present the following evidence in persuading this honorable court to overturn the findings of the initial inquest court. We shall present the evidence of Frank Khamanyana, a member of the South African Police Service, who holds the rank of a captain, who will inter alia, who was inter alia able to trace the inquest record of 1967 and its annexure, as well as other evidential materials he secured. To follow on his footsteps would be Colonel Madimeta Johannes Montle, who took over the investigations from Captain Khamanyane. Colonel Montle secured the services of experts responsible for reconstruction and simulation of the scene. These experts are from Crime Scene Management Section of the South African Police Service. Colonel Montle also managed to track the whereabouts of a locomotive similar to that which was said to have caused the fatal accident of Chief Luthuli. My lady, for this, the court will refer to volume B and C, which talks to the reconstruction of the scene by Warrant Officer Brendan Craig Burgess of the National Crime Scene Management Unit. Similarly, the court will be referred to volume B and C, which relates to the simulation by Sunette Nell, who is a member of the South African Police Service attached to Local Criminal Record Center, Pretoria. My lady, A22, to which this court will be referred to, of volume B and C, relates to the locomotive similar to that which was said to have caused the fatal accident of Chief Luthuli and is in the custody of Leslie Charles Lapasrachne. Thomas Johannes Adolf Stein, a member of the South African Police Service, who holds the rank of a lieutenant colonel, who was part of the initial investigating team, continued with the investigations after Colonel Montle left their unit. During his evidence, he will inter alia in documents that has been recovered during investigations, such as the Department of Justice files containing volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, uplifted from the National Archives. This court, my lady, shall hear of the family This court, my lady, shall hear evidence of the family members who will inter alia testify about his life, harassment, and persecutions they endured at the hands of the South African security agencies. These persons are, amongst others, his surviving daughter, Dr. Albertina Luthuli, his first grandson, Mr. Mthunzi Luthuli, his daughter-in-law, Miss Velamina Mary Luthuli, as well as Nozizwe Mhlongo Mabaso, who was close to the Luthuli family. The Honorable Jeffrey Tamsang Khadebe, Dr. Jabulani Mzalia, and Mr. Brian Kaba will testify about Luthuli as a teacher, an anti-apartheid activist, the President General of the African National Congress, a traditional leader, and a Nobel Peace Prize recipient. The Honorable Jeffrey Tamsanga Khadebe will inter alia testify about how Luthuli, the President General of the ANC, was persecuted like many black South Africans who were opposed to the fascist system. His 1956 arrest, along with 156 others for high treason, but was later released due to insufficient evidence to prosecute him. The numerous banning orders, which were designated to incapacitate the ANC and eliminate his influence within and outside the country. Honorable Khadebe will draw parallels between the death of Chief Luthuli and that of other African leaders. The state, my lady, will proceed to lead the evidence of Leslie Charles Labuschagne, a qualified steam locomotive driver and a custodian of a locomotive class 15CA, which is similar to the one alleged to have been involved in the accident which took the life of Chief Luthuli, who will inter alia testify about this class locomotive, its features, operational capabilities, as well as probabilities of inflicting the type of injuries referred to in Chief Luthuli's postmortem report. Charles van Tonder, a steam boiler maker employed at Roosevelt Rail, Capital Park, will inter alia testify about how this type of a locomotive operates, starting with rail worthiness of a locomotive before it embarks on a journey, its calibration and speed. He will also proffer his opinion on injuries which would likely be sustained by a person struck by the said train. Brendan Burgess, a warrant officer in the South African Police Service, stationed at the National Crime Scene Management Unit, where he is employed as a crime scene investigator and draftsman, whose core duties include videography, photography of crime scenes, forensic field work. He will testify about the reconstruction of the alleged accident scene, his findings, as well as the methodologies employed to arrive at the findings. In his evidence, he will further deal with probabilities relating to the evidence presented at the initial inquest proceedings by Mr. Latakhan, who was the train driver of the said Class 15CA locomotive that allegedly struck 36. This witness will further draw his findings and opinion based on mathematical and scientific calculations. This aspect will also enlighten this honorable court on why it is highly unlikely that Chief Luthuli was struck by a train and died as a result thereof. Sunet Nel, a member of the South African Police Service, holding the rank of a warrant officer and stationed at the Facial Identification Unit at the local Criminal Record Center, Pretoria, as a forensic artist and analyst, will testify about an artistic story of the scene images that were presented to her and further present her findings and or conclusions. Ms. Nell will present simulation with specific focus on inherent improbabilities contained in the evidence presented by witnesses at the initial inquest proceedings. During her evidence, she will testify about the probable causes pertaining to injuries sustained by the deceased. Hanif Majo, a retired outpatient clerk who at the relevant time was in the employ of the Department of Health in the said capacity and was stationed at Stenger Hospital, where the deceased died after he had been admitted. This witness will inter alia testify about how he happened to meet Chief Luthuli at Stenger Hospital on the 21st of July, 1967. Contrary to the evidence that was laid during the initial inquest, this witness will tell court that the ambulance driver who drove to the scene to fetch the injured Chief Luthuli was not Peter Francis Papaya, who at the time was a transport superintendent for ambulances, but a certain Mr. Zwane. The state will further present the medical evidence of Dr. Sbusi Sonzele, a chief pathologist, KwaZulu-Natal. His medical expert opinion will not only show that the injuries sustained by the deceased could not have been caused by an impact of a moving train on a human body, but it will also shed light on the inadequate treatment that was offered to the deceased to perpetuate the ideology that proper and adequate health care could only be provided to persons of European descent. This was in line with the ideological matrix of a South African fascist system, which considered white people as a homogeneous group, superior in faith, intellect, force, and in law, compared to the indigenous African people who were considered inferior in every facet of life. Dr. Nzele, in his evidence, will also draw the court's attention to contradictions between oral evidence tendered during the initial inquest and the injuries recorded by the pathologist who conducted the medico-legal examination of the disease. For example, the court heard that the body of Mr. Luthuli was flung following an impact with a train. However, from the post-mortem report, there were no findings on the skin of the torso or the lower limbs, which could favor the notion. Dr. Nzele will further give an opinion on injuries as recorded on the medical legal post-examination report, like the presence of bruises on the dorsal aspect of both the left and right hands of the deceased, as well as a fracture of the legs of the left proximal ulnar bone, which, according to him, signal defense injuries. He will also express opinion on injuries sustained by the deceased and the likelihood that such injuries were caused by a train accident. It is submitted that the evidence which the prosecution will lay during these proceedings was never placed before the court of court. Further, that the evidence presented during the said inquest proceedings was not I beg your pardon, my lady, that the evidence presented during the said inquest proceeding was inadequate for the court to arrive at a just finding. It is unfortunate that none of the witnesses who testified at the initial inquest proceedings could be traced. However, the inquest record and annexures thereto in the form of affidavits have been obtained and form part of the docket as per volume B. It is submitted that the evidence referred to supra it is submitted rather, my lady, that had the evidence referred to supra been presented to the court a quo, the said inquest court would have arrived at a different conclusion relating to the death of Chief Luthuli. My lady, this is the state's summary of the evidence before this honorable court as it was presented then and will be presented during these proceedings, which we would argue at the end of these proceedings that there is merit not only in reopening the proceedings, but also of finding that there is reason to interfere with the finding of the initial inquest court. The first inquest was on the 19th of September 1967. Chief Luthuli died on the 21st of July. No further submissions, my lady. That will be all. My lady, at this stage, I would need a guidance from court, because now I am to hand over to one of my colleagues who will start to lead.
Yes, I need to make a ruling in terms of section 17, capital letter A, which is as follows, that the inquest into the death of Chief Albert Luthuli, held on the 19th of September 1967, is hereby reopened, and the state the prosecution is allowed to lead further evidence. And
yes, my lady, the time now is about 12:30. I'll hand over to Advocate Siabonga Humphrey Mobo
yes,
to call our first state witness.
yes, I have made the ruling that the DPP may proceed, the state may proceed.
That the inquest is reopened. Thank you. That it is reopened.
Yes, I have already made that ruling.
Thank you.
As to whether the previous inquest is set aside, I think that is the
Yes,
matter that will be
be
dealt with later.
determined as we go along.
So for the record, Advocate Siabonga Nobo is now going to lead the evidence of the first witness that is lined up for
As
today.
As the court pleases. I see it is 12:30. I do not anticipate that I will belong with the first witness, so may I ask leave to call him to the stand?
Yes, call the first witness to the
I
stand.
call Khodi Samang Frank Khamanyane.
Spell it.
If
for the
I
record.
think I've pronounced it correctly. It's Godisamang, Khodi Samang.
And the surname?
Khamanyane is Kgamanyane.
That's correct.
Yes, my registrar will swear him in.
As the court pleases.
Sir, do you have any objection to taking the first right vote?
No, maybe.
Can you please state your full names?
Kudisamang Frank Khamanyane.
Sir, do you swear that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do so help me God.
I do so, please help me.
So in my name.
Thank you, Mr. Nobo.
As the court pleases, just as housekeeping, my lady, I understand the witness will testify in English. However, there may well be a need for an interpreter in the isiZulu language. I understand there should be one here in court.
Yes, do we have an interpreter? Mr. Nobo,
Yes, my lady.
I understand that we were allocated an interpreter,
Yes,
but Ms. Kupera, but apparently she left the court. Can we stand the matter down for her to be called back into court?
as the court
Yes,
pleases.
we'll take a short adjournment.
As the court pleases. I understand there is an interpreter in the
which was received by the National Prosecuting Authority. Then it was sent to our office for investigation. That's when now we started registered inquiry for investigation on this.
Uthi ke la ukungezelela la kulesi sigaba ke uthi sokhumbula ukuthi ukuqala kwakhe noma ukuqala kwaluphenyo kwakusemveni kokuba ke kuye kwakhishwa ke imyalela uNdunankulu wangaleso sikhathi nokuyilapho ke waba ke udaba ke silba lapha ke ezandleni zabe ofisini ukuthi ke liqale baliphele.
Is that reference to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal?
That's correct, my lady.
Oh.
Lapho ke sikhuluma ke la ngo uNdunankulu kwaZulu-Natal ngaleso sikhathi.
Proceed.
As part of my investigation, I attempted to trace the original criminal case docket and original inquest record pertaining to Chief Albert Luthuli, Stenger inquest number 76 of 1967, as part of my preliminary investigation.
Njeke ngxenye ke iyophenyo lami ke engalenza ukuqala ke nje ngaqala ke ukulandelela ukuthi ke ngithole ke lapha ke okuyilona cala elavulwayo ke lapha ke noma ke idocket lapha ke lokuqala noma kuyilona lona ke la nanokuthi futhi ngibheke futhi ke lapha ke imininingwane noma ama record la suke eveza imininingwane isuke ishicilelwe ke kulamacala amacala engozi amacala sample umuntu oyibulele phecelezi noma sithi ke lapha la kubhele ubhale khona imininingwane ngokwesigameko esimayilana ke kodwa nalolu daba lenkosi ke uAlbert Luthuli kwaba ke inombolo yakhona ke u76 of 1967 njengokuqala kwami ke ukwenza uphele.
I attended the Stenger police station, known as Kwadukuza, where Chief Albert Luthuli died. Then I was unable to trace the police docket.
Ngaqala ke ngabe sengiye lapha ke esikhungweni samaphoyisa alapha ke eStenger esaziwa ngokuthi lapha kwaDukuza lapho ke inkosi uAlbert Luthuli ke ashonela ke khona makhothama khona kodwa angikwazanga ukuthi ke ngithole leli docket.
As a result of the original inquest being held at Stenger Magistrate Court, I attended the court to try and ascertain whether the original inquest record with the inquest number 76 of 1967 was available. Then no record was traceable. I did not attach correspondence from the inquest clerk because of our appointment with the family members offering to help with the inquest document. An appointment was secured with the family members of Chief Albert Luthuli to request the museum for downloading of inquest materials pertaining to this matter.
Njengembangela ke la ukuthi ke la okuyiyona nto noma ke le mininingwane yeshicilele phansi ngoko phenyo ke la olwaluzokubheka ke la udaba ke lo kwakade ke kulapha ke enkantolo kaMantshi lapha ke eStenger noma lapha kaDukuza ngaya lapha ke enkantolo kuyozama ukuthi ke ngibheke ukuthi mhlawumbe ngithole le mininingwane ibhalwe phansi bana lo daba ke ngale nombolo 76 yango 1967 kodwa ke la lapho ukuthi okwakukhona kumayelana lodaba kodwa akuzange bekhona into eyiphatha noma lo marecord akukho engakuthola nokwa ukuthungatheka umkhondo wakhona ke ngaleyo ndlela ke futhi ke la kuzange bekhona engase engizokushicilela noma ngizohambisa noma kufake ezintweni zami lapha ke okwemininingwane yomabhalane laba ababheka lo hlobo lamacala nanokuthi futhi ngenxa ke yokuthi umndeni okuyiwona ke owawu umkhombandlela noma kuwona osikashile ekutheni ke wanikezelela ngokuthi uzokwazi ukuthi usisize la ukuthola leyo mininingwane noma lo maphepha sasiwafuna kodwa ke futhi ke la okwabe ke ukwazi ukuthi umndeni ke lo uthole leyo mininingwane ke yakwazi ukuthi usitshele ukuthi cha bacela ukuthi singaya ke lapha ke endaweni ke sigcina ngamagugu phecelezi museum lapho sasokwazi ukuthi kube khona okuthize sasokuthola okwakungasetshenziswa ekutheni kwenziwe ke lelo phenyo olumayelana nelicala.
Mr. Ngobo, I think we can stop there for
Yes.
the lunch break. We'll
Yes.
resume at 2:15.
Yes.
Mr. Khamanyana, you'll remain under oath. We'll take a long adjournment, lunch adjournment. Court will resume again after lunch. We normally resume at 2:15 unless the evidence leader, the prosecutor, wants an earlier resumption.
I wouldn't interfere with the normal time. I think that would be
2:15.
appropriate.
Yes, thank you. Court will adjourn now and we will resume at 2:15.